The 1960s, an era of change, hope, and unimaginable turmoil. The United States, a beacon of freedom and democracy, found itself caught in the quicksand of Southeast Asia. Vietnam, a small nation thousands of miles away, became a battleground for the Cold War, a war that would tear America apart. At home, a different kind of battle raged, a break-in at the Watergate Hotel, a seemingly minor crime. It would unravel a web of lies, deceit, and abuse of power that reached the highest office in the land. The Vietnam War and the Watergate Scandal, two events seemingly unconnected, yet forever intertwined in the fabric of American history. They challenged the nation's values, exposed its vulnerabilities, and left an enduring mark on the American psyche. These events forced America to confront uncomfortable truths about itself. They questioned its role in the world, its leadership, and the very essence of its democracy. The Vietnam War was a clash of ideologies, a proxy war between the United States and the Soviet Union. It was a war that America never intended to fight, but one it felt compelled to win. The Watergate scandal was a domestic crisis, a betrayal of trust that shook the very foundations of American democracy. This is their story. The seeds of the Vietnam War were sown in the aftermath of World War II. France, seeking to reclaim its colonial holdings in Indochina, found itself embroiled in a bitter conflict with the Viet Minh, a communist-led independence movement. The United States, fearing the spread of communism, provided financial and military aid to France, gradually being drawn into the vortex of Southeast Asia. President John F. Kennedy, inheriting a complex situation, increased American involvement in Vietnam. He believed in the domino theory, which posited that the fall of one Southeast Asian nation to communism would lead to the fall of others. Kennedy sent military advisors to train and support the South Vietnamese army, escalating America's role in the conflict. President Lyndon B. Johnson, following Kennedy's assassination, further escalated the war. The Gulf of Tonkin incident in 1964, a disputed encounter between U.S. destroyers and North Vietnamese torpedo boats, gave Johnson the pretext he needed to seek congressional authorization for the use of military force in Vietnam. Operation Rolling Thunder, a sustained bombing campaign against North Vietnam, commenced, marking a significant escalation of the war. American troops poured into Vietnam, fighting a guerrilla war against a determined enemy. The war became increasingly unpopular at home as casualties mounted and the conflict seemed to have no end in sight. The Tet Offensive, launched in January 1968, marked a turning point in the Vietnam War. The North Vietnamese and Viet Cong launched a coordinated surprise attack on major cities and towns throughout South Vietnam. Although the offensive was militarily defeated, it had a profound psychological impact on the United States. The Tet Offensive shattered the illusion that the United States was winning the war. It exposed the resilience and determination of the North Vietnamese and Viet Cong and eroded public support for the war in America. The images of the fighting, broadcast into American homes on television, brought the brutality of the war into sharp focus. The Tet Offensive fueled the anti-war movement, which had been growing steadily since the mid-1960s. Protests erupted across the country, demanding an end to the war. The war divided the nation, pitting those who supported the war effort against those who opposed it. Richard Nixon, elected president in 1968, promised to end the Vietnam War. His policy of Vietnamization aimed to gradually withdraw American troops from Vietnam, while simultaneously training and equipping the South Vietnamese army to fight the war on their own. However, Nixon's policy was marked by contradictions. While publicly advocating for peace, he secretly expanded the war into Cambodia and Laos, seeking to disrupt North Vietnamese supply lines. The bombings of Cambodia in particular sparked outrage and protests on college campuses across the United States. The My Lai massacre, which occurred in March 1968 but came to light in 1969, further eroded public support for the war. American soldiers had killed hundreds of unarmed Vietnamese civilians, including women and children. The massacre horrified the nation and intensified calls for an end to the war. The anti-war movement gained momentum throughout the late 1960s and early 1970s. Protests, marches, and demonstrations became commonplace across the country, reflecting the deep divisions within American society. Students, veterans, civil rights activists, and ordinary citizens joined the chorus demanding an end to the war. The Kent State shootings in May 1970 marked a tragic turning point in the anti-war movement. 4 students were killed and 9 others wounded when Ohio National Guardsmen opened fire on a crowd of unarmed protesters at Kent State University. The shootings sent shockwaves across the country, further polarizing public opinion about the war. The anti-war movement played a crucial role in shaping public opinion about the Vietnam War. It challenged the government's narrative, exposed the human cost of the war, and helped to create a climate that ultimately forced the United States to withdraw from Vietnam. Section 6. A break-in at the Watergate. On June 17, 1972, 5 men were arrested for breaking into the Democratic National Committee headquarters at the Watergate Hotel in Washington, D.C. The break-in, initially dismissed as a third-rate burglary by the White House, would soon unravel a web of political espionage, corruption, and obstruction of justice that reached the highest levels of the Nixon administration. The Watergate burglars were connected to the Committee for the Re-election of the President, Nixon's re-election campaign organization. As reporters began to investigate the break-in, they uncovered a trail of dirty tricks, illegal wiretaps, and hush money payments that implicated high-ranking officials in the Nixon administration. The Nixon White House engaged in a systematic cover-up of the Watergate break-in. They obstructed the FBI's investigation, destroyed evidence, and attempted to buy the silence of those involved. However, the truth began to emerge, piece by piece, thanks to the relentless work of journalists, whistleblowers, and a special prosecutor appointed to investigate the scandal. Section 7. Woodward and Bernstein, 2 names, 1 legacy. Carl Bernstein and Bob Woodward, 2 young reporters for the Washington Post, played a pivotal role in uncovering the Watergate scandal. Working tirelessly, they followed the money trail, cultivated sources, and pieced together the puzzle of Watergate. Their reporting, based on meticulous research and corroborated by multiple sources, exposed the cover-up and implicated high-ranking officials in the Nixon administration. Their stories captivated the nation, bringing the scandal to the forefront of public consciousness. They became symbols of journalistic integrity and courage. Deep Throat, a mysterious source who provided crucial information to Woodward and Bernstein, played a key role in guiding their investigation. Deep Throat's identity remained a secret for over 30 years, until he was revealed to be Mark Felt, the former associate director of the FBI. To Section 8. The tapes' truth will out. The existence of a taping system in the Oval Office, revealed during the Senate Watergate hearings, proved to be a turning point in the scandal. The tapes, which recorded Nixon's conversations with aides and advisors, held the potential to confirm or deny his involvement in the cover-up. Nixon refused to release the tapes, claiming executive privilege. However, the Supreme Court ruled that he was required to turn over the tapes to the special prosecutor. The tapes revealed that Nixon had been aware of the cover-up from the outset and had participated in efforts to obstruct justice. Faced with impeachment by the House of Representatives and certain conviction by the Senate, Nixon resigned from office on August 9, 1974. He became the first and only U.S. president to resign from office. Section 9. The Long Shadow of Vietnam and Watergate. The Vietnam War and the Watergate scandal had a profound and lasting impact on American society and politics. They eroded public trust in government, fueled cynicism about politics, and led to a period of national introspection and soul-searching. The Vietnam War left an indelible mark on the American psyche. It divided the nation, shattered the illusion of American invincibility, and raised profound questions about the limits of American power. The Watergate scandal shook the foundations of American democracy, revealing the fragility of its institutions and the potential for abuse of power. These events led to significant reforms in American government and politics. The War Powers Act of 1973 limited the president's ability to commit U.S. troops to military action without congressional approval. The Freedom of Information Act was strengthened, making it easier for citizens to access government information. Campaign finance laws were reformed to prevent future abuses. The Vietnam War and the Watergate scandal serve as cautionary tales, reminding us of the importance of vigilance, accountability, and the rule of law in a democracy. They remind us that even in the darkest of times, the truth has a way of emerging, and that no one, not even the president, is above the law.